Coach, hey, thanks for joining me today on this Simple Coach to Coach interview. One that has me quite perplexed because, quite frankly, I am amazed at how much you do look like your brother, Justin Oliver of St. Olaf. I looked at pictures side by side, and if I just chopped your head, I'm not sure I could tell. So this might be the ultimate con job, right? Like you're the same guy just doing two jobs at once.
We had some awesome stories this year. Like our site rep this year up at Hamline was our men's hockey coach, and it was after like 30 minutes he like turns to like our SAD and athletic trainer and goes like, "Is that like Tyler's cousin or something like that?" He goes like, they look like way too similar, like to not have some kind of relation. He goes, "No, they're identical twins." And I'm like, "Jesus, I learned something new today about you, Tyler." And then my left back after like 15 minutes was like, "Yeah, I kept hearing your voice saying like get wider, get wider, get wider," but it didn't make any sense because like we didn't have the ball. And I was like, "Yeah, Drew, we probably should have specified that before the game started. That we probably should have been putting names before things so you guys can understand the difference between the two of us." But just like one of those super cool things. Like we've dealt with assistant coaches, obviously, but as head coaches, kind of like reaches a different level. And parents, on like even some of our parents, like on different teams, didn't know, and like this is like some weird twin universe going on. And like my parents were there at the game, and my mom was really rooting for a tie. And trust me, I was also really rooting for a tie. And I was like, "Mom, I don't think what you know right now is that a tie would mean a lot more for me than it would mean for Justin right now." But it's the one time I can get on board with you rooting for a tie for sure.
It's awesome. Yeah, that's you created anxiety in your mom. That's not a good thing. That's actually funny. So true. My wife is a twin, identical as well. And when I used to call her on the phone, I would just be like, "Hey, don't fool around. Give me the right person." And they always knew. And so until I was convinced that I was talking to Heidi, my now wife, I wouldn't play. And it's still the same. Like, yep, no. Identical twins can be trouble. So
we have some stuff and stories that could share, but some of them probably better off kept for he's helped me out a couple of times.
Yeah,
leave it at
sure.
that.
Secret weapons, like I totally get it. Hey, I mean, this is your first official. This is your first year. Mm-hmm. Right? When did you get hired?
So I got hired right around the end of March.
Okay.
Was the official start day was like March 28th. I kind of knew it was coming around early mid-March. But it was thankfully like my 4 years at GAC saved us. Obviously, we were 3 seasons because of COVID. We were pretty successful with the 3 conference championships we won during that time. The 2 NCAA tournaments, and obviously last year losing to Chicago in the Elite Eight on a 1-0 pen loss. Granted, scoreline was probably flattering for us even at 1-0 at that point. All those things
last year. They were
impeccable. Because I was like, Justin or I knew we were playing them in the next round. It's like I had a feeling at least, given it was kind of one of those years for them. You knew everything kind of ran through Chicago, and then that team was probably the most complete soccer team from top to bottom we've seen and faced ever. Like even going back to my time at St. Thomas, when we played against Tufts the year they won the national championship my junior year, I was like, that Chicago team was just a different level of animal. And I was talking to Justin after the game. Me, Tudor, him, and Travis we're sitting down at the Applebee's because our hotels were right by each other, like talking about it. And Justin goes, "Tyler, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I don't have like a tactical edge or a tweak or anything for you. Like in that Chicago game, like they're pretty perfect, and you guys don't have a great matchup." And I'm like, I get what you mean on that one. And lo and behold, we probably could not get out of our own half for the first 45 minutes of the game. And he texts me at half and goes, "Yeah, I was pretty accurate." And I go, "Yeah, we played pretty poor." And it was like, if you have anything up your sleeve right now, it's a good time for you to share it or send it over. And thankfully, we played them 3 times. We played Olaf 3 times that year, so like we knew each other in and out. And I like to think that we still know each other's teams probably better than almost anyone, given that even like we're coaches in the conference, but we still like support each other as brothers over all else. So a lot of tactical like conversations between me and him, like after games, or if one of us is not coaching currently, like we'll tune on their game, like shoot him a text during the game, like shoot text to an assistant, something like that. Just like, hey, like we're in it with you, like especially when it comes to things that aren't like conference related, because all of our conference games are same time, same place.
Yeah. So, let me. I gotta ask. How is it that you? And is it Hamline or Hamlin?
Hamlin. I've
Hamlin.
heard it pronounced both ways. I was just go with the Hamlin version.
Hamlin. All right, Hamlin. How did you end up there? Like, what was it about? Was it just that you were obviously, in the conference already,
Yeah.
looking, understood? Because if I recall correct, was it last year, 2 years ago? Made it to the NCAA's, did pretty well. Was it?
Uh,
Was that?
so Hamlin,
Yeah.
so the version of Hamlin I kind of came to know best was my time when I played at St. Thomas,
Yeah.
and we played probably two of their best teams that they had my junior and senior years in program history. We played them in the round of, or sorry, the semifinals of our conference tournament my senior year. We were actually 0-0 with them, like the 65th minute, and I went into a challenge with their center back. I was dribbling at him, he went to ground. I made probably a little bit of a meal of it and got him sent off. We ended up scoring 3 goals like the next like 12 minutes to kind of like put a bow on the game. But it's like I kind of ruined like one of the best seasons Hamlin's had as a program, as a player. So I'm trying to kind of rectify that now as a coach. And then Al Morawecki had done an awesome job here for a really long time. And then now he's actually currently working at Minnesota United in the youth team setup with I think the 17s and 19s. So he did a good job of kind of like taking Hamlin to like another good level, and then Parlay did do a nice job for him that provided some stability as well with him having two young kids.
Yeah.
So I've known Al for a while, just because he coached against me when I was a player in club, college, see him around at recruiting events. And then when this job got posted, the women's soccer coach here, Michael Prunty, who also coached at Minneapolis City as a USL2 assistant, he coaches in my club. And he goes, hey, just so you know, Tyler, like this job is opening up. Like, I'd love for you to like be interested, like put your name out for it, like put in a great word for you. So he did an awesome job of kind of putting it on my radar right away. And honestly, like my 4 years at Gustavus under tutor were probably the best 4 years I could have asked for as a young coach. Him taking chances on me, letting me make mistakes, learning from them, putting a lot on my plate when I was there because he trusted me for it, and I would not be here where I am without him. But Hamlin's like 2-minute drive from Allianz Arena. So like right downtown St. Paul, like right next to the MLS, like a little bit of a soccer hub in its own right that way.
Yeah.
It's 5 minutes from where I went to college at St. Thomas, like 15 minutes from where I went to high school. Like it's home for me.
Yeah.
So like beautiful private liberal arts university, like right in the Twin Cities. Like I stepped foot on campus like for my interview, and I'm like, yeah, this place has got it. Like
Yeah.
I can do some stuff here very comfortably. And it's been a really good first 9 months or so. The AD who hired me, actually, his name's Jason Verdugo. Just he left probably like a month and a half after I got here. So I like went through like one of those like oh no moments. Like guy who like it's like when a player's like your coach recruits you, brings you in, that coach is gone. It's like oh my god, what's going through my life now? And Jason, his replacement was Alex Folk. He was also our compliance director at the time, women's basketball coach. So he's part of like my interview process. He's on the committee, so like that helped ease that transition too a little bit. But like just Jason Verdugo, who's now at Eau Claire, like with Casey Holm, and like has been really supportive of their soccer program. He was a big reason I took the job. Like he's a winner through and through, and just kind of believed in me because they're like I'm not the easiest person to like. Like I got some fire in my belly, and I've been known to get into people from time to time, and Jason appreciated some of those things about me, and I've learned to tone it down as I've gotten a little bit older, a little bit more mellow and calmer. Like
You'll mellow out. Like
no
doesn't
cautions
matter
this year from me, which is one of the big things
good.
we had on the improvement list. So that was
That's
one of the things my AD was happy about this year, especially. But to sum it up, like Hamlin's home for me, like Minnesota's home, like my family's here, like as in my brother, parents. got a girlfriend of like 9 months right now, so like that's
Nice.
probably the yeah, like we're Minnesota is home. Like laying down roots
Yeah.
here is probably the biggest thing. And then I also
Yeah.
coach club at St. Croix. I've got our '07 ECNL boys and '09
Mm-hmm.
ECNL boys. And I actually just got named our USL2 head coach at St.
Nice.
Croix this year, so I'm pretty pumped about that. It's like for me, it's just like everything has kind of fallen into place,
Right.
and Hamlin was probably the biggest piece of that that's kind of came together in the
Yeah.
last 9 months now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, so I must have got confused with somebody else because I did look back on the previous years, and I will say probably the most dramatic thing is how well you did this year, right? Like,
Yeah, I would say that's. I
yeah,
appreciate you for saying that. We had a big uptick in wins from kind of what had been going on in the last 4 years. I'd say three
yeah,
seasons because of COVID. I think the record was like 10-36-6 or something like that,
yeah,
like a 250ish winning percentage. But like the 2 years before that, it was conference semifinal, conference quarterfinal, like hosting playoff games. So like I know that's the level Hamlin like can and
sure,
should be at. So like
right,
now it's just a matter of can I get us back to that point? And we ended up missing out on the playoffs by one game this year. Kind of boiled down to a second half against St. John's. We were up 1-0 at halftime, kind of cruising, like in total control. Their goalie's a USL2 goalkeeper at Minneapolis City. Played unbelievable in the first half, like tipped two balls onto a post and a crossbar that could have made it like 2-3-0.
yeah,
And St. John's like ultra competitive team, like they're going to give you something all the time. And they came out the second half just flying out of the gates. We
yeah,
conceded a set piece early, counterattack, and then we're 2-1 up a man, and it felt like we were down a man. Honestly,
yeah,
like it was one of those moments, and from that moment on, like they grabbed another one to make it 3-1, and that was like kind of it was early in the season, but it was one of those games that when we kind of pathed out our route forward, like to make a
right,
conference tournament. It was one of the ones you kind of had to steal or take,
yeah,
and went
yeah,
against us. Like resiliency was still good throughout the rest of the season.
right.
I think the next game might have been Gustavus.
You
Honestly,
did, and you tied them 3-3. So you right, like that's a big point. I would. What
oh,
do I know? Yeah,
it was massive, like for me,
yeah,
for like a personal standpoint, but just
yeah,
like the boys in general too. Went down 1-0 early. And part of we had some good score lines this year. We had some bad score lines.
yeah.
So Hamlin traditionally kind of been like a Burnley-ish, like low block, like 5-4-1 counterattack kind of a team.
Oof.
Yeah, and it wasn't what I played it as a player. It wasn't what I'd coached. So we play like a 3-5-2 here, pretty much the exact same way Olaf plays a 3-5-2, just maybe not as much quality inside different positions, obviously.
Right.
And I said to you guys, we're going to play everyone in an open game this year. I was like, the days of us like fearing the big boys and not being willing to play with them toe to toe are kind of done and dusted. Like we might have some scorelines that don't go our way, but we're going to be better off for it next year, the year after, and the year after. So that maybe a little bit of a detriment to us this year at times,
Yeah.
but at some point, got to play with the big boys if you want to join that group.
Yeah. You
Um,
can't. I've said it. I've said it before, right? Like, if you want to get somewhere, if you want to be better, you can't. You can't cruise through your schedule, right? Like, you need to be playing teams. Like that's the only way
and
to do
especially like
it.
when you get those top teams, like you can lose a soccer game 1-0 very comfortably
Yeah.
with being massive levels away from someone,
Yeah.
and that doesn't really get you better and improve you for the future necessarily.
Yeah.
But like we played Gustavus in a really open game, especially in the first probably like 60 minutes. A lot of pressing, attacking. Like I had some alums come up to me after the game. There were some recent grads, some like past all conference guys, and they're like, "That was probably one of the best performances we've seen the Hamlin team have." Probably like 10-ish years, and they're like, we're not saying like obviously you guys didn't win, but like just like from like the toe to toe aspect, like being on the front foot at times, like going to take the games to teams, like it was a
Yeah.
refreshing change,
Yeah.
and that's part of it. So we want to play a style of soccer that's proactive and that people can get behind as fans, students, administration, players, and so like honestly in the Gustavus game, like we went up 3-1 in the game. There's probably 20 minutes left. I turned to my sister. I was like, "This is like a dreamland right now." Second, I say that left center back goes down injured. Boom, right center back goes down injured in the 3-5-2. And it's
Yeah.
like we did a good job of kind of revamping the program pretty quickly. I'll give my assistants Jonah, Troy, and Cole kudos on that too. They were awesome from a recruiting standpoint. My assistants are actually all guys that I've played with or coached in the past. Like they're all younger, my age or younger. So, like Jonas still plays for Minneapolis City at the USL2 level as a captain. Cole was a first-team All-American at Gustavus when I was there, scored 24, 25 goals his junior year. And then Troy, our goalie coach, was my goalie my junior and senior year at St. Thomas. And then I coached against him in the MIAC final, actually his last game of his career when we beat him. But he was a first-team All-Region goalie that year. So they're kind of just assembling a staff that, again, people can be proud of and get behind was another big step for us. And that when we ask our players to do something, it's about guys who have done it in the past. And I think all of them have had Cole with forwards, Jonah with defenders, and Troy with goalies have all brought some very specific things that allowed us to improve inside different positional groups. That kind of allowed us to be able to make some strides this year. And then from a recruiting perspective, we brought in 17 guys after we got hired at the end of March, because there were no committed players that were currently in the pipeline when we took over. And of our team this year, I think it was 51% of our overall field minutes played were by players who were not in the program last year, and 70% of our scoring offense was by people who were not in the program last year. So we turned over probably about half the roster in the way we wanted to. So now this next class coming in is something that we're hoping for more of the same.
Yeah. So you're going to bring in a big number, or is it or are you looking more for a better quality?
I'd say if the quality is there, the number will keep getting bigger. If the quality is not there, we feel pretty confident with. I think we're at 7 currently right now. It's a decent mix of transfers and freshmen. Honestly, one of the best parts about being at Hamline is right in the Twin Cities. You get a lot of guys who leave the Twin Cities or Minnesota area to go to different colleges, and some just miss home, miss the cities, like being at a small college in a big city. We do a decent job with transfers on a pretty regular basis. So it's one of the things that we've tried to tune into as a coaching staff. And with me having transferred myself as a player, I think my story kind of resonates well with them when people are kind of feeling that way. Because picking a college one time is hard. Picking a college a second time equally is hard. It's just letting kids know, even if they're not welcome, they don't want to come here at first, that they have a home here and a family here if they want it a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And if they're happy where they go, no one's happier for them than me. I'm all about just players and their overall happiness. And the coaches that get on people who don't choose their schools or something like that, it's never it's always confused me.
Bad karma.
That's what I think too. And as long as the kid's happy at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Is Hamline? Is it? I mean, it's residential, but does it have a big commuter?
Yeah, we have I'd say we probably have 10 guys on our team right now that it's probably a heavy number. It's probably 7 that commute from home. Our leading point getter was played as a wingback for us in our 3-5-2. Jesse Juarez was actually a transfer. He commutes from home. It's about 25, 30 minutes probably from Shakopee. Majority of our team does live off campus though. They have some extra beds, couches that guys will crash on on a given weekend, or say we have a late training session or early morning film, something like that. They'll crash on couches. The guys do a really good job here of really just embodying that kind of family atmosphere, and then just like being creative and like finding ways to make it work for people financially, because higher education's not cheap.
Not cheap.
I mean, I still pay my loans every month, and I know St. Thomas wasn't a cheap school, so anything I can do to kind of help bridge that gap for people or make it financially doable, like I'll always try and make that happen.
I just had a call with financial aid, so I'll just this morning. So it ain't cheap.
Nope.
It ain't cheap. So I got to ask you, like, all right, March, you did the spring, you had spring practices, you were able to lead. Like,
Yeah, we had 20 guys for the spring. Like, 2 of them were abroad. It was kind of like skeletal. Like, to get to play like 11s, like it was almost impossible. Like, we had to bring in some guys who would like quit basically from the program, or like just like some students around campus sometimes, like to get to that point, so we could even work on some of those like tactical aspects of it. But most of it was like competition, speed of play, and just smaller space stuff to get us in playing more and trying to be on the front foot and develop technically. But it was. I think we'll be at 30 this spring, so like I'm infinitely happier for that.
How different was there? If you were to ask them, if you were to ask one of your players, like how different was you to whatever was here before, and how much change did you sort of bring upon them
Yeah, no, I think the guys on the team probably give me and the staff probably too much credit for the change that took place in a short
Mm-hmm.
time. Like honestly, a lot of it was down to them and their commitment and their work rate, and a lot of it was me just kind of giving them the connections to go
Right.
play like men's league in the summer, try to find
Mm-hmm.
semi-pro teams to go play on.
Right.
A lot of it was them kind of going above and beyond to make it like a year-round focus, because I don't think it had necessarily been that way in the past. We wrapped up our banquet. Probably it was late November, early December, and we do senior speeches for them, just like to give the guys a platform to
Sure.
kind of speak to
Yeah.
their teammates, like let their parents and teammates know kind of what it meant for them to be a Piper over 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And my girlfriend was there at the banquet, and like she like started getting teary at some of the senior speeches in terms of like kind of just like what this year had meant to them and the
Mm-hmm.
refreshing change from being a 2, 3, and 5 win team
Yeah,
to
it's
being a game out
huge.
of the conference tournament at 8, 6, and 3. Like for them,
Yeah.
like it was the longest they'd ever like been alive and being like in
Yeah.
contention, like just being proud to like be a Hamlin soccer player to them.
Yeah.
Like she like was borderline in tears, and I'm like I normally I'd give a speech after they were done, but I'm like, you guys, we're gonna have to go to the video first because like if I start talking, if you guys talk, I will cry and I will lose a
Yeah.
lot of credibility in front of you guys for it. Um, and it was like our senior class this year like was awesome. Like when I met with them, like in my interview process, like there was 5 of them. It was Jared
Mm.
Garcia, Caleb Hoy, Nate Vogel, Seth Hardesty, and shoot, I'm forgetting the fifth one off the top of my head right now. But I sat down and they're like, well, like they're like, what are your hopes for us? Like year one, like we haven't been great lately. Like why is it interesting to you? I'm like, you guys, I think we could be a conference tournament team maybe in year
Mm-hmm.
one, but hopefully for sure in year two we can make the strides we want to make. They go,
Mm-hmm.
what are you kind of talking about, man? Like we've been like I think it was like 10th, ninth place or 10th. And
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, you guys like there's things here like you guys have a lot more in you than you probably think or believe.
Right.
And then one of our senior our a kid's come back as a fifth-year senior captain. His name's Cole Brennan. He was over in I want to say England doing a abroad semester, and I was on FaceTime with him. And he goes like, "I hear what you're saying, Tyler, but like I don't know how you think we're getting there, man." And I'm like, "Well, just like get trust in the process. Like we'll get better, like bit by bit. Like recruits will come in, like we'll get there." And he's coming back for a fifth year now, which we're pumped about. Our other three captains
Nice.
this year are going to be guys who are actually new to the program from this fall. So like pretty good indication of kind of where things have like changed and what the strides that they've kind of made and the way that the
Mm-hmm.
team views them. But like those seniors, like when I met with them, like we've played a lot and like we haven't necessarily won. Like we don't really care if we play that much. Like we want to win more than anything else. I'm like, you guys, we're the best players are always going to play here. Like
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
make that promise to you guys right away. If it's you guys, awesome. If it's not, like you guys will probably be the best team that you could ask for it. And they embodied that like to a T. Our second to last game of the year was against Buena Vista. It was actually a continuation. So we were up 1-0 after like 24 minutes, and the game got called due to excessive heat. And every other year, you have to pick up the game from scratch again, which is what I
Yeah.
thought. But the rule changed, I think, a year ago. Now you continue where the game was left off. So we drove down to Buena Vista to play, and two of our fourth year seniors that had not scored a goal yet. One of them scored a pen to make it 3-0 right towards the end of halftime, and one of them scored an early second half goal to make it 4-0. It's like that was like one of those like cherry on top for those guys to
Yeah.
be the
Yeah.
teammates they were and leaders that they were, to like kind of get some reward or carrot at the end of it was like one of the most cool things I will probably ever be a part of.
Yeah. Hey, what? How I mean, this is year one, not even year one for you, but like, how much more do you have to go? Like, to revamping. I'm curious because you brought in such a big class. You're talking about another big class, and getting the guys to play that you want to play. Like, how much do you how
Yeah,
much do you think this is going to
we've kind of
go
set
for?
out as a staff to try and turn the team over in close to 2 years.
Yeah.
That being said, there were some very good players that were still in the program from the previous
Yeah.
staff that have carved out even bigger roles and made big strides that played a pretty big part of our season, especially towards the end of the year once we'd picked up some injuries. Um, we've got a lot of confidence in the team that we have right here to compete for conference like playoff spots. But ultimately, like I am a serial competitor, and whether people like believe it or not, the person that I am always compared to the most and will always be stacked up against is Justin. Like for any truth or fault, like it's like my parents and like my grandpa's like, yeah, I'll be like your turn to win a national championship next. I'm like, yeah, I'd love that. Like, trust me, no one would be happier than me. But like, there's been one team from further like west than Illinois that's won it in like 60 years. So like, I don't know if we can get to there, but ultimately, like, I want to compete for conference championships. Like that's what I want this place to get to. And for that means we have to turn over probably another half of our team and probably even do better than some of the guys we currently have. And that's just the reality. If you want to compete and be at that level, I think our ceiling this year showed that we can play with anyone on a given day. But like our floor was also just lower than I thought it was going to be at times, where we could lose to teams that maybe I didn't think we should have, or like had some bad results when we lose games by 4 or 5. And like that, and part of that was like cultural and turning things over a little bit and developing that overall like winning mindset, winning culture, like winning the day, winning a 15-minute stretch. Some of those things like had to go through some of the hardships, even though like I was hoping we could have maybe learned from things in the past or preseason. But you got to take your punches on the chin sometimes. But I fully back this place to be a spot that's, again, fighting with the big boys and not being a bottom tier team in this conference. And our 4 pillars of our program are love, dedication, respect, competition. Like we did not have enough squad rotation or competition for our internal places this year. That led to like just some comfortability, but also just injuries over the season without having the depth to rotate at times, or like having levels fall off. So like we need guys that can go out and start and push our first 11 to the absolute break or pushing point in practice.
You need that.
That's one of the biggest steps we have to develop and grow still.
Ants endurance, right? Like that competitive cauldron. That if you don't have that, it becomes really hard to push the team up higher, right? You need 22 guys who are all competing, 25 guys who are all competing for a spot, and I think that just makes you all better. Hey, I got to ask this from you. So when you were you hired for a purpose? Like, was it like, hey, we want you to come in, right? Like, we want you to rebuild, we want you to turn around, or did caretaker, right? Like,
I mean, like
these. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd say so. When Jason hired me, he goes like he even brought it up to me. He goes, Tyler, like he said like to our team when he introduced me, he goes like, this might be like one of my favorite hires I've had since I've been at Hamline. You guys, I've been here for like 15 years. Like that's how highly I think of him. And Jason brought it up to me and goes like, the second you think like you can move on or go to something different, like I will push you at the door and help you to do that. But like that's not like my mindset. Like I'm in Minnesota. I'm in home. I'm in the place where I want to be and can grow at. And like there's I think I could be here for 45 years and no one would be happier than me about it. And like that's thanks to like the roots and family that I have here. I've left home twice, once to go work at Elmhurst for a year as a GA, then for 2 years early in college to go to Eastern Illinois. I came back home to Minnesota. So like it's just one of those things that kind of when you know where you're supposed to be, it's easy to like give it. And I think one of the biggest things that guys see when they come to campus and when they join the team or when they're in practice is like they can tell that this program is family to me. And I think that just bleeds into everyone else, and that love kind of like goes to another level. I use probably that word probably more often than I should, but I think like when guys know that you love them, you care about them, that they're willing to run through walls for you. And I know like I played best for people who I felt loved me and cared about me. So if the second I lose that as a coach, I'm not going to be the person that I want to be, the mentor that I want to be, the brother that I want to be. It's like it's just staying true to like kind of my core values while still pushing us to be better is probably the best way to go about it, I would say.
You got there's so much I could go to. There's so many rabbit holes. Is like, would you say that your job right now is more the, I don't know, interpersonal relationships with the players than it is about the soccer?
I'd say that was probably the biggest thing that I'd set out to accomplish over the spring and
Mm-hmm.
summer. And I steal this from Travis Wall and
Mm-hmm.
Justin as well. Like Travis he does biweekly meetings with all of his players to drive home that
Yep.
like interpersonal relationship aspect.
Yep.
It's one of the first things I brought into Hamlin.
Mm-hmm.
And just because again, I think like the guys got to know you have that love and care for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have that, tactics are second to none if boys
Yeah.
don't want to do what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
And then right now, I think those guys know that I care about them as students. I'm paying attention to how their grades are. I'm asking how their family is, like what's going on in their social life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like again, truthfully, as a player, like I remember like when I was at St. Thomas, like started the season when I think I had like 4 goals in the first 5 games. And I get in an argument with my girlfriend, and like
Yeah.
we're going to St. John's the next day, and I have a shit warm up. And pardon my
Yeah.
language, sorry.
That's
I end
okay.
up tweaking my groin after like 10 minutes, and like end up missing the next 3 games for it. I'm like, you guys, like if you want to pretend those things don't happen, like they
Yeah.
still happen. Like it's gonna bleed into your game.
Yeah.
It's like if you can at least talk to me about it, like maybe it gets off your chest a little bit. You're able to like escape that when it's time to get back
Yeah.
into training a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's again, I try to learn from my own mistakes and share that with the guys on our team so they can
Mm-hmm.
benefit from it, so they don't go through it themselves.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, that's new. That's all new, like not new, but in comparison to my day,
oh, I'd say very
yeah,
modern,
modern
like,
thing.
yeah.
That totally is. We used to get yelled at. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know, it didn't matter what you were going through. It was like rub dirt in it and get on with it and play. Like
And
I
then, like, on
don't.
the flip side now, like when I have to come down on guys or like get on them a bit, they
Yeah.
know it comes from that good,
Yeah.
genuine place that it's about what's best.
Yeah.
It was an awesome quote. Like it was like, it's not enough for you to love players anymore. They have to know that you love them, which is
Yeah.
different than the way it probably used to
Yeah.
be. Because I think
Yeah.
you ask coaches, they love their players like to a fault. I would guarantee it. But being able to voice it or say it was probably a little bit different. But now I think just like they have to know that
Yeah.
in order to like give you what they have to give.
What's been your biggest challenge so far?
Yeah, I'd say the overall like mindset change from knowing that you're good enough and you belong in certain conversations as a team and program, and that when you're winning games, is you're not stealing games, you're winning what you deserve and have earned from a stylistic standpoint, from a chances standpoint, and overall like belief and mentality standpoint. Again, as a player, I got to be part of programs where like St. Thomas, like Coach at Gustavus, like people put on the jersey and they feel like good things are going to come their way.
Yeah.
And I'm stealing this from Alex Foke. He goes our athletes, you guys at Hamlin, need to feel that when they put on this jersey, and that from their coaches that like good things are coming. Belief has to happen. Passion has
Yeah.
to be there. And I think I've been able to pull from some awesome coaches in my past. I got to play under 3 different college head coaches when I was a player. Got to work under 2 other ones in my first 4 years out as a coach. I've been able to pick and pull a lot of those things that I like about them, or maybe things that I think they could have done differently, and brought into like myself as a coach. And just the overall biggest thing is like the coaches who are winners and have that belief, it just bleeds into their program from day one. And just getting the guys to believe that that is what we are is probably one of the hardest things we've had to overcome. And
Yeah.
we're not there yet, but we're in the process of getting there, which
Yeah.
is nice that people saw some of that jump in belief. I think like the recruiting class that came in, like what was good. A lot of them embodied kind of that overall like winning mentality and culture. And like the younger guys like kind of were really hungry for it. The older guys had kind of like they had the experiences of where things kind of they were used to things going against them. They were kind of conditioned for like it's not if the dam is going to break, it's when is the dam going to break. And then whereas like when you feel like the dam's about to break, that's when you dig in the hardest. Like you grab a shovel, you get to work, you try to reinforce that with everything you possibly can. And we got to that point towards the end of the season a bit, but still have that again that next chunk to go to be where we want to be. Yeah.
So I'm going to say something. My coach of the year, and I've been saying this for ages this season, whatever. My coach of the year is Duncan Gillis at Caltech, right? Because Caltech was never had a season with more than I think it was 4 goals. So dating back to 2006, and this year he ended up going 6-6-4, which I think is massive.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say something, and this might get me in trouble with some of your fans and people. You're pretty much up there as well, because you only won 2 games 2 years ago. You won 4, 5 last year,
And then
And
three the 2 years before that, I
yeah,
believe.
yeah. And here you are at, what was it, 8-6-3. That
Hmm.
is a remarkable turnaround, I would argue, in such a short period of time. So you might not get a golden Rice Krispie treat, but you might get a silver Rice Krispie treat, because
Thanks. I
that is
appreciate
pretty
that.
remarkable, and it's not only a reflection of you, right? It's a reflection on your men, right, on your
Mhm.
team, and sort of doing the things you want them to do, right, and moving along that way. So I'm actually, the more I dive into that part, like it's your turnaround's been pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and like we set out this season like I wanted us to try and double the win total from the previous 4 years or 3 seasons
Mm-hmm.
inside year one. I thought like that'd be a pretty good statement if we could get to that
Mm-hmm.
10 win number. Like the three ties kind of equated out to like roughly 9.5 wins in the eyes of
Yeah.
winning percentage. So like we fell short ultimately of kind of what we'd wanted to achieve both in the playoff spot and the win total. I think like from the inside, like the quality that I knew we had in the squad and like how high our ceiling was at times, like I think we knew that we probably wanted more, could have achieved more,
Mm.
which has the guys feeling hungry this offseason for kind of what's to come. But like from the outside, like I think people see that growth and they're like really proud of it, and it's like I'm proud of it too because like when I asked our guys like if you had to like rate the season as a whole like on a scale like 1 to 10, like our seniors are giving it like 9.5s, tens, like they're pumped about the
Yeah.
growth and
Yeah.
trajectory, and like our
Yeah.
freshmen sophomores like yeah like we left some things on the table. I think like it's probably like 7.5 or an 8. And I'm like it just kind of shows the different mindset
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
appreciation even inside
Yeah.
of the team. And I think I'm hungry for more, and the guys are hungry for more. Because even as much as you want it as a coach, like everyone knows that if your players don't want it more than you, it's never going to
No,
matter enough. And I
never
think we're
gonna
at the point where
matter.
the guys want it every bit as much, if not more, than I do, which has us feeling pretty upbeat and positive
Yeah.
for
I
next
mean,
year.
I mean, it is. I mean, you started out 4-0. When has that ever happened?
First time in 17 years was our
Oh, so
SID
yeah,
check down for us when he
like,
posted it.
like that's right. And I,
You'll get a kick out of this. Like it was, we'd started 4-0. Obviously, you talked about Olaf. They'd started 1-3. So I was
yeah,
like, listen, like I've got a better winning percentage than you right now. Not saying this, but like, just know, like,
that's
and then like for a while, I think even the guys on our team were pretty aware of it. They go like, Tyler, you got a better record than Justin. I'm like, you guys, the second he passes me in that win total, I will probably never catch him ever again. So if we can keep my lead over him for just like another week, I will be the happiest man in the world. I think the actual
oh
flipping point when he overcame it was I think the game against us is when
yeah,
it finally like, flipped for good, and I'm like,
yeah.
I'm never catching him ever again.
It took him a good, what, a month. It took him a
Yeah, like
good, yeah.
I
It
got
took
to
it.
hold on to it for a
You
little
got the,
while.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
nice and refreshing.
He was chasing you for a good, for a good 6 weeks. So
Yeah.
that's funny. I'm gonna shoot him an email and be like,
Yeah,
yeah, I didn't
it
know your
was
brother was a better coach.
yeah, I mean, like the more we can spread that narrative, the better
Yeah,
it'll be.
yeah,
Honestly, so like I'm not gonna say not to do
yeah,
it,
yeah,
but
yeah. That's
now it's
awesome.
like again, like we're like each other's biggest, like again,
Hmm.
biggest rivals, but
Yeah,
biggest like advocates in
that's
every
good.
possible
Yeah,
way
yeah,
too. So it's a really nice balancing act. Like when we
yeah,
played them this year, like I say, we try to press and play against everyone because we do try to, and like we're trying to press them for the first like 10, 15 minutes of the game, and like we could not get close to like we turned them over maybe 2 times in pretty compromising areas, but didn't do anything dangerous with it. Then like we ran out of steam pretty quickly with just lack of depth, and like they just wore us
oh
down. Like I
yeah.
think they
They were
probably had the
so
ball inside
good.
our half for probably 75% of the game.
Yeah, they were
I'm like,
good. They
and
were
it's
they were
it's zero
really
zero. Like
good.
probably 40
Yeah,
minutes in, I'm like, we might get to halftime feeling zeros, you guys. Like, and the whole plan against them going in was like, you guys, we keep it scoreless as long as possible. We keep it down one as long as possible, and we
yeah,
fight for a result. Like last 10,
yeah,
last 15, we can.
yeah.
We can see it on a short corner on an own goal when we switch off on a set piece like 2 minutes before halftime, and Justin looks over at me and he goes that's tough. I go, yeah, that is tough. Because like, just like instinctively, like they had some like we did a decent job of limiting their chances. It's like pretty like not great scoring areas as much
You're
as you
right.
can with a team like Olaf.
Yeah.
And
You
like for that to
can't
go
you
in, there's
can't
kind of like
against them. You can limit them, and you can make it difficult for them. You put them in positions where it's harder for them to score. but they're good
We
enough.
we
They're good
defended in
enough to
like a
take
flat
it.
5-3-2 zone only that game, just because like you can't live man for man against them in a back
No,
four with the
no,
way their wingbacks get. So you had to stay +1 there, and you can't go man for man in the midfield because Clemente, Victor, and Robbie all win 1v1 matchups. And I was like,
they would be like they're chomping at the bit. Like
exactly.
I'm
So like,
man marked. Oh, this is awesome.
like we had a zonal 3 shifting side to side,
Yeah.
and our 2 holding mids basically sat by Robbie or whoever like the holding mid that
Yeah.
when they came deeper was. Just try to force them into the wide thirds of the field, and we did a good job of it. And like, so it's 1-0. Like we're heading into like last 15 minutes. I was like, okay, you guys, told you this. We're not going to try to hang on to 1-0. Like results there to be played for last 10. Like we're going to try. So I switched us to a 4-3-3. We went man for man pretty much all over the field. Inside 30 seconds, the ball's in the back of the net, and I go 2-0. Game's gone, you guys. We're gonna just close up shop now and kind of keep it where it is.
Yeah.
But again, like it was like a respectable game. Like we challenged them. And Justin, like we talk all the time, but like when I told him at the beginning of the season, like, yeah, we're gonna play with everyone. Like we're gonna go toe to toe. He goes, Tyler, like if you're my brother, like you're gonna. Like, you could play everyone else, like, or you could play us in an open game, but against, like, other top guys, you could probably, like, sit more of a low block, like, make them sweat it out a bit. And I'm like, nah, Justin, sorry, can't do that. Like, we're going to try to play with everyone. And again, we learned some lessons early, like, when we're playing open against some good teams. Like, Augsburg, like, 5-1 to us, like, trying to play them pretty open. They had a pretty dynamic winger that got ISO'd a lot.
I thought they were good. I also watched a couple of their games, and I thought they were.
They lost one game in our conference this year. They tied, I think, two nationally ranked teams, as well as like some other good ones. Like when I was at Gustavus 2 years ago, we scored with 7 seconds left to equalize against them. Yeah. Like they're one of probably the sleeper teams that people don't know how good they truly are. Like on their day, they can beat anyone.
Yeah. I always say that's the kind of team that the ball bounces right for them throughout the season and they stay healthy. They can go deep and because they could do a deep run in a tournament just because they play well and right.
And like when I was at Gustavus 2 years ago, like Augsburg ended up missing out on the conference tournament, and like they almost got in as the 6th seed, and we knew if they got in as the 6th seed, we were going to have to play them as the 1 in the semifinals, and it was like the very last thing we wanted. That's the best compliment you can give to a coach or a program is that you don't want that to be the team you see in a playoff setting. And honestly, the MIAC as a whole, like there's no easy games. Like what we've talked about a lot as the coaching staff in this conference is the bottom of our conference is probably better than maybe it's ever been. But we had 3 teams ranked inside the top 12 of of the country this year in Carleton, Gustavus, and St. Olaf. Like we had 3 teams go to the round of 32. Carleton lost to Olaf in a tight one. GAC ran into Calvin, which is a top 4 team in the country, in my opinion, from what I watched and saw from them this year. Like for me, the hardest round of 16 game in the entire country this year was Chicago and Calvin. I think that was the biggest juggernaut game that you could ask for in the round of 16, bar none.
And I'm a big fan of Calvin as well. Like I think it's time. They need all those things to, like I said, just sort of fall into place, and I could easily see them being national champions. That's how good.
When I was at St. Thomas my junior year, when we were in the Final Four, Calvin was one of the other teams there, and that was like, and Ryan, they do a great job there every year. Obviously, it's like they're always in that conversation. But I'm like, the programs that do those things on a yearly basis, I have like an infinite amount of respect for, because like losing in a national semifinal as a player, losing in the Elite Eight as a coach and a player, like you get that close to like
you taste it
there, like you taste it and you're chasing it forever. So again, that will be what I chase forever, and I know that will probably be a perilous task, but I will be chasing it forever.
That's why I ask a lot about like the cultural things and how the team is bought in and that sort of thing, because I don't think it's the soccer, right? I don't know if this is accurate from my vantage point, but I think this, obviously you got to have good players.
Yeah, like obviously, but good culture beats good talent every day of the week.
Yeah, you could have 11 great players out there playing for you, but if they come off the field and they hate each other and they're really tough to coach, like you're not going to get very far. It's just the nature of it, right? Like, so I haven't seen it yet happen, especially at. I don't see that happen very often. So I think culture is such a big piece to that. And all the teams that win, and
I'd
you
always
find
heard it
out
as
that
a
they,
buzzword
yeah,
in the past too. I'm like, what does like
yeah,
culture like really mean? And like, and it's funny because like normally like a lot of time people that end up being head coaches are like former captains of teams or things that like embody
yeah,
that. Like I was never the captain of like a club team, college team,
yeah,
anything like that. Like I was the teammate that you love to have on your team.
mm-hmm,
Other coaches and other players typically hated,
mm-hmm.
and that was a lot of what I spent probably like my early years as a coach was trying to probably rectify that like overall perception.
Yeah,
And thankfully, the coaches in our conference have been awesome to both Justin and I when we were
yeah,
assistants, and then like just sharing tidbits of advice,
mm-hmm,
like when we were like sitting down watching recruiting events as 22, 23-year-old
yeah,
assistant coaches, and like just like being willing to share that with us like goes a long way. And like
yeah, yeah,
the group of coaches in our conference like could not be like better people, and like even the ones I haven't gotten to like play for, like even like you see the way they run programs and the way people talk about them, and like I like the
yeah,
way that they run things. I like the way people talk about them. Like
yeah, yeah,
how can I bring that into myself where
yeah,
people like think about me like that or talk about me like that?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
still
Well, they
like
leave
there's
an indelible mark too. Like that's the
Mhm.
other thing about a team culture. If it's by design and it's built and it's fostered and everyone's bought in, like that's the legacy you leave, right? Like how guys leave and come back and be like, "This is the greatest thing since sliced bread," right?
Yeah,
That kind of thing.
you hit the nail on the head like with like the
Mm-hmm.
legacy word. And
Yeah,
like I've and that's one of the things that you don't appreciate maybe until you're graduated or you're gone, unless
mm-hmm.
people like share experiences. And like I made the mistake when I was a senior at St. Thomas. Like I got sent off with like I think 10 minutes left in our
Mm-hmm.
Elite Eight game. And like for me, I thought that was like the end of my college soccer career. I
Right.
thought it was the end of everything. I was like, my career is done. Like nothing else matters. I had some choice words for an official when I walked off the field, and non-starter can't do that. Like no
Yeah,
go, very clearly, like not
yeah,
allowed.
yeah, yeah,
And like that's one of the things that people like talk about, like when my name comes up or the legacy of our St. Thomas team sometimes. And I had to go. It's came up in every single job interview I've ever had since, obviously, and rightfully so.
mm-hmm.
And I think like being able to share like that mistake that I made with my current players or players that any
Yeah,
program I work with or get the chance to talk to, you can protect yourself from so much and your team from so much and your team's legacy from so much by just like learning from again your past mistakes and just trying to share that with people so they don't go through it themselves and realize that
yeah,
everything is bigger than just you or
yeah,
this one isolated moment in
yeah.
time.
It's never about one player, right? Like it's not the program's not about one player. Can't be,
Mm-hmm.
cannot be, because that one player will go, right? And it's just the way. Like I said, it's got to be about us and about who we are, not about who you as an individual end up being. Otherwise, you, like I said, you won't necessarily get too far. Hey, so what are your plans for the spring when you get to train?
Yeah, no. Our 24 sessions this year are a nice increase over the 16 we had.
Yep.
We spent most of the year in a 3-5-2. We got to a 4-3-3, sometimes 3-4-3, sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to probably add a little bit more tactical variety in what we're able to do.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at Gustavus, we had a lot of tactical flexibility. We had a pretty consistent team, and obviously coaching staff continuity
Right.
standpoint, you're able to get. Me and Justin both feel this way that typically there's something you can do to give yourself or your team a tactical edge, whether
Yeah.
that be a small amount, like 1 to 5%. Like just
Mm-hmm.
being able to have that wrinkle that you can go to pretty seamlessly
Yeah.
or easily can be the difference in winning or losing games when
Mm-hmm.
it really matters. Obviously, like if you've got better players, you're going to win a decent amount of the time. But coaching is about what can you do to give your team the best chance to win in those 50-50
Mm-hmm.
battles, those toss ups. And just overall driving home that again culture and love aspect of like just enjoying the time we get to spend together. But also just being able to compete. Like I'm sure people probably feel the same way I do. But like when you compete with your best friends, like those are the people you go hardest against. Like when you
Yeah.
get to
Yeah.
like talk that noise a little bit after things
Yeah.
go your way, that's when things go the best. Like when I'm playing against people I don't care about, it's like that the trash talker stuff might be a little bit bitter, or like not have the same edge to it. But like, and if we can compete hard with ourselves inside of our program and we can elevate our levels there, I feel really confident about maybe what the spring could look
Yeah.
like or next fall could look like.
Yeah.
And like we've talked about like outlook perspective. Like there's pretty easy things that you can do to gauge success. Like if you make the conference tournament, it's going to be a successful season. Like
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, like we're just looking to continue to grow day by day. Like trust in like that overall process and that mentality that if you win that day, you're going to be better. You win that month, you're going to be better. You win the off season, you're going to be better. I think the way our schedule and some things shake out, hopefully we can be a double-digit win team next year, which would again be another massive step forward for us.
Yeah.
And ultimately getting us back into kind of the conversations or places that we feel like we could be.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, I'm assuming those are sort of what you're looking at for the fall. Like if I can wrap it in a bow, we make the tournament, double digit wins. Is that sort of where you're thinking your goals lie?
Yeah, I mean,
For
like
this?
obviously those are like the kind of like the benchmark goals that we
Yeah.
have. Obviously, we do our goal setting in a pyramid, and those things be at the top of the pyramid doesn't matter. You attack the bottom of the
Yeah.
pyramid, the right things above it typically fall into place.
Yeah.
We scored 31 goals this year, which was the most the team had scored, and I think it was 16 or 17 years. So
Yeah.
like it was a big change from an attacking football perspective.
Yeah.
Like we left ourselves open at times because of it, which is why we conceded 31 goals, which is probably the most we've conceded in a little bit. But if we can kind of, again, we left some chances on the table. Our save percentage this year, I think, was like just above 700. Most of the year was probably like low 600s. So like, it's probably one of our biggest areas for growth is if we can kind of elevate our save percentage, like not give up as many clear cut chances. I think we'll alone be able to kind of make that jump. And obviously, recruiting is the big one.
Yeah.
And then again, our goal scoring, our attack is in a good spot. If we can add a little bit more depth, a little bit more variety, we'll be better off for it in the same way too. And part of it's like me having to grow as a coach as well too. Like we spent a lot of time focusing on what we did in possession and what we did pressing. Finding ways to like kill off games is something we did a better job of come the end of the year, but I probably could have done a better job of preparing us for that in the early and middle parts of the season.
Yeah.
So I think like again, taking some of those punches on the cheek probably helped us be better for it in the long run. I think some of that continuity will be really good for us next year.
Yeah.
But like we basically we took a team of 35 that was 17 new players from August 15th. There was everyone was learning on the fly. Like there was like no previous like relations in place from people in different positional groups. Like our center backs had never played together. Our center backs had never played with our goalie. Like our forwards, like, thankfully, two of them were from the same club team. But like other than that, like they didn't play with anyone else on the team. So we had little pockets that had some continuity, but not enough. So I think that overall, like we returned roughly 9 of 11 starters, which is a good place to be in. But we still need to improve on some of those starters because again, if we want to be the team we want to be, like you always have to be better than what you currently have in the program. Like when Justin and Travis were at St. Olaf, like they're like, yeah, people got us to 9-8, but that didn't mean they were the ones to ride to a national championship. Like so that. If we want to go from being a non-playoff team to a playoff semifinal team to a team that's being in the conversation for a championship on a given year, like you always got to improve, and that's and the right people in the program.
That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, right? Like who you are today, right? You always want to be better, and so how do you be better? You got to bring in better players, and like it's a never-ending cycle. That's the same thing I tell to
our guys too, and like you guys, I'm 28 years old. If I'm a finished product right now as a coach, I will be the worst coach that you guys will ever come across. Like the same way you guys are trying to get better, I'm still trying to get better. Like I'll try to watch an insane amount of soccer, steal things I like tactically from people. A lot of time spent on Twitter finding different tactical ideas, different setups, like learning from other
watching my YouTube channel and all the interviews. All right, Coach, I want to be cognizant of your time. Really do appreciate it. This was fantastic. I wish you the best. I used to go to Minneapolis. It's a shame. I used to go to Minneapolis a lot. I used to stay at that Marriott. There's a Marriott right on the corner. And the only reason why I know it is because there is a, how do I call it, a gentleman's club, like half a block away that they said all the Vikings and the...
it's downtown Minneapolis, I'm
sure.
Yeah.
So... I used to go there a lot. In my previous life.
I'm assuming obviously the hotel. You mean?
Yeah. The hotel. Yeah. I'm gonna delete this part of.
Yeah, that's a good part to clip out, and then we rewind.
Yeah. My first editing ever on these videos is I'm just gonna rip out a chunk of what I said. No, at the hotel. I used to stay at that Marriott. Really enjoyed it. Oh, that was terrible. So, how about them Yankees?
That's one of those things that's perfect. But like similar to what I talked about before the recording started, Justin and I, Justin Travis, Justin too, we've all talked about like what you do for Division III soccer around the country. But like the eyes you kind of shed on the Midwest, like it goes a long way to us. And like none of this happens without you. And like the more exposure we can get on kind of Minnesota and the Midwest, I think we can continue to elevate Division III soccer here because I truly do think some of the best parts of college soccer are played out here in the Midwest right now.
I totally agree. I wrote a article, I don't know what, on the Patreon page. I said how the Midwest and the West won, and this year in particular. And I noticed like a lot of the really great soccer I thought was coming from the Midwest, was coming from out west, right? We obviously on the women's side with Cal Lutheran, but Pomona Pitzer is equally as good on the women's side, and the men's team, the Texas teams, and obviously St. Olaf, and I think there is something going on where a lot of great soccer is being played out there, and I just can't help but not notice it and not look. So, not to mention, the East Coast gets boring after a while.
I mean, all the juggernauts are there, and the big boys. They get most of the national championships.
They're always there.
But everyone knows them already.
Yeah, exactly. Only so many times I could talk. Nah, that's not true. Kyle Desatel, the head coach at Tufts, right? Like, great program. There'll always be a great program. That's not fair. So, but
they beat us in the national semifinal for a national championship the next game when they won one the year before. Trust me, I would have loved if they could have maybe shared one with St. Thomas at the time, but it's not the way things go. And like Justin's funny story about how he wished for a national championship when he was at St. Thomas our senior year. I was like, technically he didn't wish for it that year, I wish he maybe would have specified, because sometimes maybe you put things in the universe that could have been helpful for us.
When you leave it up to the big man, he does it on his time, not yours, right? You got to be specific. So, but anyhow, thank you very much. Really, really do appreciate it. Wish you the best. We'll catch up again in the summer, maybe before the season kicks off, and we'll see where you're at and see what you're thinking about the fall season.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Paul. I'd love that. And if you're ever in Minneapolis area, let Justin and I know. We both love to take you out to dinner. Thank you again for all you do.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Thank you, Paul. See
Thanks.
you, sir.
See you. Bye.